Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello again, I'm Sue. This is Talk Cosmos, and today is September 29th. We have just had a flush of so many experiences. This is the second, as of very soon, the second eclipse, and we've had the equinox. It's a powerful time and we're looking at the seeds that got us here. We're going to go ahead. That's what it's all about. We're going to be ready now to talk about archetypal symbols.
Synthesizing the new moon consciousness through archetypal Sabian symbols, numerology, lunar mansions, tarot, and astrology, all together illuminating a new moon vision story. This is your Archetypal Symbols panel.
I'm Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, consultant, speaker, writer, vibrational astrology student, Dwarf Planet University graduate, Kepler Astrology Toastmasters Club charter member. I have a fine arts music degree plus a certificate in jazz. I'm an artist, musician, and certified color energy life coach. Especially, I love mythology and esoteric philosophies.
I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, a professional astrologer, intuitive, numerologist, and tarot reader. I'm a certified sacred healing counselor, providing nurturing, in-depth consultations for individuals and couples. I'm an author, blogger, speaker, and international Reiki master and teacher. I create safe space in which to explore the deeper patterns of your life, to clarify your current circumstances and help you find your best path forward.
And I'm Justin Crockett Elzie, an archetypal Jyotish astrologer, yoga and meditation teacher, and author. I combine both Western ancient astrology and modern psychological astrology with Eastern Vedic astrology, and I specialize in predictive, electional, and karmic astrology for individuals and couples. I also do in-depth astrological research into arcane astrological concepts, focusing on the mystical, occult side of astrology.
Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift." And that's why it's called the present. Hi, Liz. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Sue.
That's so nice. Well, we're off again. And it's our second one in September, but it's because the moons just move a little bit different than our calendar. And this is happening on the 2nd of October, the actual eclipse itself. Okay, we'll just jump right in.
Sounds good.
All right. And just to let everybody know, Liz can be found at her website, A Light Path. And Justin can be found at justincrocketelzie.com. And I have their emails here. It's liz@alightpath and justin.elzie@gmail. And of course, I'm Talk Cosmos, info@talkcosmos. Liz and I, how about if we talk just a little bit about the archetype, and Justin, jump in if you have thoughts too. But it is in the first, well, it's actually in the second decan, isn't it? It's 10 degrees, 4 minutes, Libra. Solar eclipse on the 2nd of October. And for East Coast, that's going to be in the evening at 10. I hope I have that time right. 10:34 p.m. ED. I try to check these things so often. Yes, I did. I'm going to check it right now. Anyway, Liz, tell me about the.
Libra's about relationships and balance and harmony, and the shadow can be indecisiveness.
It is true. They think of both sides so much that it's like, okay, what did this side? What does that say? What does that think? It's all in the head. But yet because it is our desire and what we're attracted to, we can just leap into that intuitive part and see the beauty, what feels good. I think that helps get
So
through
it's
that.
actually at 2:49 p.m. Eastern time. And just to kind of tell you that we also need to pay, even the first decan is ruled by Venus, but we also need to pay attention to Uranus, because the second decan is ruled by Uranus. So there's a desires aspect to this first decan, but then also a mental aspect when we move into the second decan with Uranus there. Since it's a higher vibration of Mercury, and as we'll see with the saving symbols, there's more of in that area of the saving symbols that deals with more mental aspects. So that's what we're kind of leading into with this.
Well, I immediately recognized when you brought in Uranus, I thought, oh, I looked at that time thinking that is not true, because all of the United States is having this eclipse during the day hours. And even Europe is having it in the day hours. In fact, I think Europe might be the 10 o'clock. Well, no, anyway, I have the times later. So my apologies, folks. But I guess that's sort of the uncertainty, and maybe through our mistakes, we learn a little bit more. I mean, I hope won't drive that into the ground. So Uranus is happening. The whole archetype, when the moon is in Libra, is about companionship. You want that emotional balance, those peaceful relationships, and it is wanting fairness and some artistic expression. Any other thoughts?
No, we kind of covered this on the prior slide, actually, with the meeting.
Well, it is, but it's moon. It's the moon in it. So it's emotional. It's that emotional need to have companionships. So
but the shadow in Libra, we actually covered on the prior one as well. So we're just kind of expanding on it here a little bit.
That's right. Yeah. So there's a fear of conflict. You know, there can be an emotional idea of that, and emotionally wanting to please others too much. So it's just something to watch always. Numerology, it's 10, which drives it down to 1. Liz, you want to begin? And Justin?
Yeah, because the 10, it's like finishing up things and starting new things. It's fresh, new beginnings. The 1, to me, is very much about confidence and creation and newness. And the 0 is, it's open, but it's closed. It's unlimited potentiality.
Yeah, and there's also a group aspect to this, because we know in the tarot, the 10 cards are related to the group structure. And when numerology, when a person's born on a 10 day, it's about their role within a group. So there is sort of a collective thing going on with this energy as well, with those relationships in a group.
I appreciate that. It does add, doesn't it, to that big picture of 10, you know, with other people involved. And in Libra, how really potent to have that emphasis that it's not just about them. The Justice card, the number 11th, is the major trump card, major arcana. It is a trump card. It's not major trump. It's major arcana, and it's a trump card. Sorry.
And it corresponds to Libra. And, you know, it's the natural law and cause and effect, polarity and balance. And I do look at it as a karma card. Not everybody does, but it's one of the cards that I look at as a karmic card. And the shadow is injustice and prejudice and chaos. So,
yeah, it's pretty clear. It really does show about that cause and effect, as we understand, along with polarity. All replicates that idea of karma, of what you sow is what you reap. Somehow, through the essence of metaphysical love. And we have been
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we have been including the minor arcana cards, because the decans, every 10 degrees of a zodiac sign, 10, 20, 30, has, if you have something in that set of degrees, it's ruled by one of the astrological, about the tarot cards, and they go in a Chaldean order. So there is a system to it, and it is something to study and learn and expand on.
So we start with the 2 of Swords. It's the moon in Libra, the Lord of Peace. And it's like she's there contemplating a decision, and it's not an easy decision to make. So it's like she's really focusing on it and working through it.
Yeah, the swords are air. And of course, that would be if you have anything in Libra from 0 to 9 degrees. However, this is how it would work in your chart to have that emphasis. And the second,
Justin, you want to do that one?
Sure. The Three of Swords, which is Saturn in Libra, is called the Lord of Sorrow. And so here we have this emotional aspect with relationships, and of course, being air sign, heartbreak, joy, togetherness, and grief. It's almost like the hearts through this. This is actually very indicative of the three energy of this, of three swords through the heart. So a lot of times what's interesting too about this, I'll just tell you something interesting about this iconic, how we say this image. You'll see this a lot in some coat of arms from Europe, old Europe, this particular image. But so it does have this aspect of Lord of Sorrow, kind of paying attention to our heart.
Yeah, and that is interesting about Europe, because it's such an old with so much history. And when I was reading some of this to understand a little bit about it too, it was that you can have both. You can have love has the sorrow and the joy. It's that pain of separation. It's the whole 9 yards. So it's really that's interesting.
Yep.
So then we have the last 10 degrees, 20 to 29, all the way to 59 minutes. And it's also an air, swords, mental communication aspects. And it's a Four of Swords, which is Jupiter. You know, it goes from the limitations, the contraction of Saturn to the expansion of Jupiter. Go ahead, Liz and Justin.
Well, the Lord of Rest, I always think of it as relaxation, recuperation, and receiving an initiation or doing some meditation.
Yeah, and as we know on this card, it's always got the person lying on the coffin or sarcophagus, and so it's a knight, so there is some aspect of as Liz was saying, rest, or even endings and completions or death can be associated with this one. But there is this sort of structure, and I think it's ultimately the manifestation of Libra with Jupiter there.
You know what's interesting is I just realized my moon is right there. It's 22 degrees. And from reading, it says you need to rest. And I am realizing that just a moment of deep breath, grounding, realizing where the moment is really does, of course, as we all know, revitalize life. So
right.
It's case in point. Thank you, Jupiter. Justin.
Yeah, so then one of the other things we look at on this show is the lunar mansions. And the lunar mansions is basically, and in the Vedic or Jyotish astrology, it's called the nakshatras. And it's basically takes a look at each of the stars in the zodiac sign that the moon is going through at that particular point in time. And it's about myths and stories and deities and energy associated with each of the nakshatras. So in this particular one, the moon, or what we call Chandra in Sanskrit, is in the nakshatra of Hasta, in the second pot or second category or section. And Hasta actually means hand in Sanskrit. That's why in yoga, you'll actually see the word hasta associated with some asanas or yoga positions, because it's talking about the hands and being involved in the yoga position. So it generally means a relationship to what we're doing with our hands. And in this particular one, this nakshatra is called the star of the golden-handed star. And the ruling planet is the moon, and the ruling deity is a Savitur, which is the solar god of inspiration. Symbol, of course, is the hand. And the basis above is below is seeking to gain or obtaining one's desires is the Shakti power. One will gain one's desires. Again, we kind of go back to Venus, which is rules this particular deacon that we're looking at. And then, of course, the themes with this is perfection and creative with one's hands, and then health and hardworking. So again, this could relate to artists, writers, artisans. This is a good time, Moon, to do something with your hands.
With the moon involved too. Thank you for this. Tying it a bit together and using Western astrology, there is the most obvious story for Libra would be the birth of Venus. And that's her Roman name. In Greek, it's Aphrodite. And she has lineage that goes back further, of course. It's a very ancient essence of our whole consciousness. But the story is generally where the primordial god Uranus mated with Gaia, which is Earth, to create all kinds of form. But it was very indiscriminate. And because it was just birthing, creating life. And a lot of it, Uranus didn't particularly care for and kept stuffing into Gaia. Well, Gaia got kind of tired of that. And besides that, there were some gods that were in there, and Saturn was one of them. And he worked with Gaia and had a plan and stopped that whole process by cutting off the genitals of, as the melodrama story goes. But out of that came, from the sperm into the ocean, you can think of it as a womb, what was birthed as Venus. Now, the story often flips. Immediately there she is riding into the shell, going into Gaia. However, you have to think, I have often thought that was out of strife, right? That was like a very violent act that out of great love, and you could say it really ties in together this idea of even Hasta seeking to gain, obtaining one's desires, because really, and the tarot out of natural law, which is karma, what you seek and find, because true love is actually the essence of desire, of true desire, of what we want. That is, so you have to think that the truth of the universal gift was for true manifestation of spirit coming into form. And so therefore it goes into the Fibonacci, harmony of spirit and matter, and the harmony of beauty. And so therefore you get this shell that's often the spirals of the shell is one of the Fibonacci, the golden means. So it's actually a very powerful story. And desire, of course, depends on what we are linked to. Are we just for ourselves or for others? So there, in love, there can be great dichotomies. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing. I love how again, we bring in Venus and Uranus here. The two rulers of the first two decans of Libra here, because really we're dealing with both decans with 10 degrees. And both of these planets, as we're going to see, form grand trines in the chart for this new moon. Both Uranus is part of a grand trine and Venus is in a grand trine as well for this new moon. So I think it's I love that how you brought in the mythology with these two planets.
Thank you. In the sky, if you go to Earth sky, they always have the constellation, and there are these two. I'm not even going to try to say their names. Zubin, anyway, the stars. But interestingly, it was the claws of Scorpio, and so really, Libra is this symbol. It's the only one that's inanimate of all the constellations, and it's this harmony of balance. And you could say that at the equinox, of course, it is equal day and night, but the Greeks saw it as the claws of Scorpio, and the Romans had Libra, the scales of justice, held by Virgo, which is the embodiment of Astrea. I hadn't heard that before, but it's pretty intriguing. So we have Sabian symbols. And there are 4 in our particular dialogue. There's going to be the past, present, Sabian itself, which is the next one rounded off, and the future. Where is it all heading? Medium Elzie Wheeler, she's a spiritualist, with 1925 with Mark Edmund Jones created this entire process of it. And I'm skipping that last slide because I made a big boo-boo, another Uranian glitch. So we're just going to go into the ascendant and realize that this is Eastern time, okay? So, and other charts will show it to you. You don't need, yeah. So, Liz, how about if you start off?
Okay, the past, Capricorn 15. In a hospital, the children's ward is filled with toys. And the keynote, the responsibility of society to ensure the welfare and total health of the new generation. And the key word is tender care.
So the present degree itself at 16 degrees Capricorn is a school grounds filled with boys and girls in a gymnasium suits. And it's that need for physical activity and play, and especially in their youth. And so it's exercise, the benefits of what exercise really does for us.
And so where we're going towards with this, with the Sabian, Capricorn 17 degrees, is a repressed woman finds a psychological release in nudism. And the keynote here is really this escape from social inhibitions in our society. And so the keyword is release from inhibitions. And then the future, the next one going forward is also where we're going towards is Capricorn 18 degrees. The Union Jack flies from a British warship. And here we have this concept of power, the protection afforded to individuals and groups by powerful institutions in charge of maintaining order in society. So it's an aspect of Capricorn around political power.
It is interesting in Capricorn how it goes from the child to the female to all these different, well, we'll pull it together later. So the MC is in Scorpio and it's at 16 degrees. So we'll start with 15 and do the present, and then we'll do the Sabian. And where is that all taking us? That's taking us to the future. So the past is at 15 degrees. I'll switch it around. I'll begin, then Liz, you can continue. It's children playing around 5 mounds of sand. This is the past. In its early steps in their development as the mind seeks to be attuned to this, of their evolution of the higher humanity. So it's future orientation and growth. Liz?
And in the present, Scorpio 16, a girl's face breaking into a smile. The fervent reaching out on the part of the young of heart to new experiences, warmth of feeling.
And then where we're going towards here is Scorpio 17, a woman conjugated by her own spirit is great with child. The keynote here is a total reliance upon the dictates of the God within. It's what we call very spiritually the transpersonal way. We're birthing something here. And then, of course, the future, of course, further on where we're going here is a path through woods, brilliant with multicolored splendor. And it's the exalted feeling of a work well done and a truly consummated life, transfiguration. So ultimately, that mid-heaven, which is our ultimate goals, we're trying to transfigure.
Yes, it's a process. So now that was for the East Coast and for the United States and Canada too. They have their capital up there, and that's how we present it. But 10 degrees Libra is the actual sun and moon. That would be for everywhere. And we'll begin with 9. It's 3 old masters hanging on the wall of a special room in an art gallery. So it's that need to return to source. It's during a confused search for finding those new values in a chaotic society. I think that sounds familiar. And the key word is really an apostolic succession. And in other words, it's an uninterrupted change of gurus, which is an Indian tradition. So there's many ideals of how we're going to look at these new values to try to find form. It's kind of like founding fathers try to get us started. Don't know. Liz?
Present, Libra 10, having passed safely through narrow rapids, a canoe reaches calm waters. The keynote is the self-control and poise necessary to reach a steady state of inner stability. And the key word is relief.
And then the Sabian 11 degrees here is a professor peering over his glasses at his students. And here we are dealing with a mental aspect of the transmission of knowledge within our culture. It's called instruction. And then, of course, where we're going towards here is the last one, which is Libra 12 degrees. Miners are surfacing from a deep coal mine. And it's sort of this need within humanity to carry on and go even deeper in this quest for knowledge, turning the fires of the collective mind of a society. It's about extraction and going deeper.
This series really seems to have a continuity, doesn't it? When you think of just right, and I see Liz shaking. Agreed, yeah, because it's like searching for those values and going from inner stability to what's being taught to the fires. Well, now we have a recap, which I'm going to allow. Please share your thoughts on this. These are the key words for the whole picture.
Well, the ascendant is talking about taking care and the exercise and release what inhibits us, and also the political power. So even just those few words speak volumes to me.
Yeah, I agree. And then, of course, the midheaven, which is kind of representing what we're trying to, our higher goals or what we're trying to accomplish is transforming ourselves. And I might point out that when we get to the keywords for the sun and the moon, that the 11 and 12 degree there are the mental aspect. Again, back to what I was saying in the second decan, which begins with the 11 and is in the 12 degrees as Uranus. So we have that instruction and knowledge and extraction of that. Ultimately, this moon is really good for learning and communicating, I would say, in some aspects.
Yes, we shall certainly see. And that is most interesting, though. Like, Liz, can you explain some of the volumes that put you on the spot here? When you said it spoke of volumes, tender care, exercise, release from inhibitions, and political power. How do you pull that? I'm excited.
Well, it's like taking care of ourselves and taking care of others, but then exercise is an important thing that, we get fresh air, we do some exercise, that falls in taking care of ourselves, and release things that stop us from doing things that we want to do.
Yeah.
And then, kind of step into our own power, even though it says political power, but step into our own power.
Good.
And this is so powerful being in an eclipse. It's like, it's like the scales are turning. It feels like, what we've done to this point is being weighed, because they always say about that, like our heart should weigh the same as a feather in the scales.
From Egypt. Yes, indeed. Yes, that's right. You didn't get into the afterlife, and depending on karma, right? Like what did you reap and sow, and what did you do?
It feels like a turning point, and it's like there's no going back. It's like a turning point to move forward.
Very good. Well, we will take a brief getaway and let you listen a little bit here and get that little something to wet your whiskers or mouth with, and we'll be right back, okay? So stay with us. We have all about the chart for the eclipse. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Libra, ruled dually by Venus. By leaving the lower hemisphere of the self, the energy of Libra enters the arena where the completed self meets the other than self to form a relationship based on partnership. As a cardinal air sign on the descendant angle, represented by the equinox of equal light, Libra's energy learns through comparison and relationships, with the intention to integrate duality and polarities.
This is Martha Norwalk, every Sunday morning beginning at 9 a.m. Thanks in part to Linda Rasmussen at verticalenergyworldwide.com, we cover the world of animals. This week, it's Shelter Rescue Sanctuary and anything that helps our animal friends Sunday. We'll check in with Meow Cat Rescue, Help Animals India, and Beth and Merritt Clifton from animals24-7.org. Plus, we'll find out about all the great events and classes coming up at the Ananda Institute for Living Yoga. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific on KKNW. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Bored with the other stations, hammering away on the same old talking points? Try Alternative Talk 1150 and get some variety.
Here we go. Okay. Again, my co-partners here are Elizabeth Liz Muschett and Justin Crockett Elzie. And we'll just give a little snapshot of their exciting things that are happening. Liz has a YouTube monthly episodes, and that's at her name, Elizabeth Liz Muschett. And she has episodes with Justin and this other interesting astrology Star Sisters talk over tea, of which I am one of her sisters. And we have a dwarf planet series coming up, which is most exciting. And Justin has his archetypal information pardon me, my tongue is getting. Liz, did you have something to say? I know I'm skipping over your comment.
Oh, no, go right ahead.
Okay. All right. And Justin is on Instagram. He does 3 different presentations, a Mars forecast, a weekly lunar forecast, and Ask the Astrologers, besides those that he does with Liz. And plus a YouTube with Michael Bartlett, the Relationship Guys, which is an exciting dissect of different relationships. Also, he is going to be speaking at OPA, which is the Organization for Professional Astrology, on December 8th. If you're a member, it's free. Otherwise, for merely $15, you can listen to this, and Justin will go into the Sabian symbols in relating to chart interpretation. Justin, did you have anything more, or shall I?
No, you got it covered. Thank you so much.
Yes. And myself, if you go to my Talk Cosmos YouTube channel, I have videos featuring me, Sue Minahan, and it shows all the 6 shows that I've had with Liz, and the one that we did on series, and the next one that we're going to do, you'll find out about it. And to just let you know about Talk Cosmos, if you're interested, of course, about eclipses, there was one on the lunar eclipse with Planet Buzz. And just last week, there was one about the fall equinox, about vibrational astrology, which is fascinating. And next week on the 6th will be about the 4 lunar phases for coming up. So you can kind of get a little bit more information. But this is really in depth what we're doing for this solar eclipse. And I have to give a plug for a new panel that is U.S. Global Currents. And our focus is on a series, 24 U.S. elections. And the next one will be in October on swing states. So thank you for everybody for signing up and keeping in touch with us. We're growing. It's exciting for this. Now, here we finally have the accurate times. And for Washington, D.C., it is in the afternoon, 2:49 p.m. And in London, that's going to be 6:49 p.m. And it isn't until you get to Sydney that it's going to be the next day in the morning. Another just ongoing factor, it's been going on since April, continues until January, but Ceres, the dwarf planet, is out of bounds. And we've gone over what that means, but it really means that she's operating on her own instinctual archetypal energies. And that's nurturing versus grief. Has a lot to do about women, agriculture, foods, life and death cycle. And she's also in a very active position where she's squaring this particular eclipse. Liz or Justin, you want to make a comment, or should I?
No, go on.
No, go on.
Okay. We often refer aspects hard and soft. And hard means action usually. It's a square or other aspect, a sesquiquadrate, which is a combination of a square and a half square. And the soft is a flowing or connection. And that's a trine that just continues to operate, one connecting to another, or a sextile, which is actually a connection. Just a reflection to realize that a solar eclipse, it is a matter of suspension. We're just stopped in this magic and awe to renew a new start. Here we are, the new beginning. This is the correct one at 2:49 Eastern time. And I put this in the beginning just to show the whole chart, but we're going to dissect it in a moment. The nodes are stationary, meaning they're really focused on their energy at 6 degrees of the self for North Node and the South Node with Libra of our partnerships and relationships. There are retrograde planets, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. It's gone back to 29 degrees until about the 19th or so of November. And this is the last Libra eclipse for this cycle of nodes. Shall I go on?
Yep, please.
Sure, go ahead.
So now we can begin. Liz and Justin, you want to, bring something here. This is for the sun and the moon, just to kind of give a little bit of what it's doing.
Yeah, because it's in a grand cross with opposite the South Node there, and then with the Ascendant and Ceres and Mars. So that's pretty powerful, that grand cross.
It is. Yes, it is. And that will show up later. Here it just shows that it is. I think that is its major feature, really.
Yeah, and I think it's also kind of important, if we're just kind of getting back to some basics here a little bit with the planets, that if we could go back to that where we were just at, on that one, on this one specifically, the Moon Mars square, because that really, the moon represents our emotions, and it's in that sign of Libra, which we've been dealing with all year with the South Node. And here it's squaring our action, Mars in Cancer. So anytime that there could be, disconnects between what our heart is saying versus the action that our mind or what we're wanting to take. So it's also a time to really pay attention to kind of marry these two aspects together that our heart is in with every action that we're taking.
Good point. And also because it is with the South Node, it's a matter of release. What are those attachments that might be what Mars is trying to say? And it's in Cancer. It's being ruled by that moon, and it's looking for our safety. But yet, what are perhaps we clinging to that's really obstructing how we can move forward and go ahead? And how can we nurture too? It's that is a Ceres is right there at the there's part of that square, grand square. And I like the fact that it is, I almost didn't add it, but it's in a connective sextile to Pallas. So maybe how we're thinking and our strategies. There's some help about in Sag of our inexpansive going in a new direction, opening up some kind of vista.
Right, releasing the past and moving forward. And how are you going to do that?
This brings up with the circles, the grand square that you mentioned, Liz, and along with it is that T-square.
Right. Well, and the North Node should have been circled too, but that's all right. for that grand cross.
Oh, did I? Yep. Okay.
So
Yes,
so
of
I
course.
think
You're right.
again to emotions within relationships here is it, and you know that same square, it's forming a T square there really. That moon, Mars, and Chiron, again about how we're communicating in our relationships and emotionally dealing with emotions within our relationships here with that moon, Mars, Chiron square.
And then most interesting that Jupiter is in a square with Saturn, and of course the asteroid Vesta, which is our hearth. So it's this expansion and contraction that they always represent. And then Nessus is there, that is kind of the centaur that brings in kind of the negative changes of how to. I don't quite have a way of expressing that as you might, Justin, but at any rate, but there are things that in that expansion, the process that we need to cut away from. Yes.
Yeah. And again, it focuses, because Jupiter's in Gemini, about our communications with who we're engaging, as far as who we're depending upon. You know, Nessus with Taurus, Nessus with Saturn and Pisces could really kind of represent some of how we're depending upon others, especially when Nessus gets close to Saturn.
That's interesting, thinking that this is in Libra.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, our relationship. So get ready to cut away and be free, I guess.
And, you know, I think from a higher perspective, we've all been dealing with, and I'd be curious what you all think of this. I think this is really important because we've been dealing with the nodes in Aries and Libra this whole year, a little bit over a year, actually. And I think this is sort of a very important inflection point in this year and a half cycle with the Aries Libra nodes. You know, here we have a solar eclipse in Libra on a new moon in Libra. I think is an important inflection point that what we've been dealing with, that South Node there the whole time. There's a bigger theme going on here before it moves into Virgo next year.
Yes, and Pisces, which will be in January 10th or something. Yep, that's exactly
and
the last.
I would say just breathe, and that there's a lot of change to process and happen, and you might have a lot of demands, but just take it all in stride.
Good. Yeah, so did I miss it? No, I am going to the next one. That's right. We have a Thor's hammer. I look at these now since Liz brings it to our attention, and that's where the hammer happens to be Uranus. So change is plummeting us forward. You know, it's a sesquiquadrate, so it's a square and a half. And with a square between that whole shebang up there, that stellium in Libra, Mercury, Lilith, that wants our autonomy of trueness, and the sun and the moon and the South Node with Ceres. There's all that action. How are we going to nurture ourselves? And the changes just pushing us forward. What do you have to say?
And what we might need to release, it's like Uranus is going to push us to release what we need to release. And so breathe and start working on it yourself instead of letting Uranus push you through it.
There are some helpful flowing, connecting energies. The trine, and you had said there were two. Pardon me, I only put the one in, so you'll have to help me refigure this second. But it is an interesting one because it's in water, and it's Mars and Venus and Saturn. So there's a lot of nitty gritty work to get to hands-on experience. At least that's sort of a vibrational way of putting it.
Well, and it forms to a kite, it looks like, too, there to Ceres and the ascendant. And then there's a mini grand trine with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So
yeah, didn't I put the kite down? I know I made the kite.
It's there.
Maybe I didn't. Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, and the Earth trine is actually Uranus, Pluto, and the midheaven. I think it is. Yeah, the midheaven, because this midheaven's in Capricorn, 20 degrees Capricorn.
No, so midheaven's in Scorpio.
All right, no, this one. Okay, so then on the well, okay, there's a trine here, a grand trine, and one of the and I think maybe it's in the Seattle chart. I guess maybe I was looking at it.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's important to know. That's right. Yeah. So just to realize that it shifts across the world, and you can get these. So that's good for the West Coast. You can have forming through all the emotions, bring form to it. Earth and water, they like each other. Those are two good trines to, I would think, manifest
and support each other.
Mm-hmm. And of course, these mini trines have continued, which does make the kite. Thank you, Liz, which I had written, but forgot to do. So it's really Neptune that's still working so strongly with changes between Uranus and Pluto, where it's dissolving. We're moving forward through the rapids of life, it seems. And the other one is really a matter of finding how to nurture ourselves with our thinking and structure, restructuring through that. Like, does a raft work? No, maybe we need a rowboat. Maybe we need a better canoe. Don't know.
Exactly.
A point of Thales is another one of these patterns that comes up, and it's a very constructive one if you look at the chart. And in this case, it happens to be Jupiter. And it makes a trine, and it makes a sextile to planets that are in opposition. So Jupiter, the expansion, and it's in Gemini, is really working on one of the backdrops, trying to work with how we're healing ourselves and maybe how we're thinking that through with our relationships. Seems like it's constructive.
Fix your sound, Sue.
Oh,
now it's better. Now it's better. Maybe you're too far away.
No, my cord, and it's draping on my arm. So the mystic rectangle. Go ahead, Liz. I know you always have.
Yeah, I love those mystic rectangles. To me, it always feels like it's some kind of gift that's being presented to us, but we're going to look at the planets that are involved in that. So it's Ceres in the ascendant, and Saturn in Nessus, Mars and Vesta. So we've got an interesting combination of planets. We have two malefics in there, and then two asteroids. So that's kind of an interesting one. So we have, basically the male and the female energy. So I would say that, like, asking us to do some rebalancing there.
Ceres is a dwarf planet, just to let you know, not an asteroid.
And I would really want to point out here this with the importance of the two malefics, Saturn and Mars triangulating, because this really, I think that does put a particular focus on healing of our emotions right now, and in dealing with difficult emotions, and with the Pisces Cancerian trine there with Saturn and Mars,
and trying to find the hearth. Vesta, the hearth of our altar, the whole basis, it's such an ancient tradition of the Vesta. And
Mars is important to watch for the rest of the year here too, because right after the election, it goes retrograde. And it's not always good to go into a new year with Mars, which is about our, going forward in life, being retrograde, meaning that there's a lot of, as we move into the new year, a lot of people are going to be thinking about, oh my God, I don't know which direction to go now. And so it's going to be going a little bit into Leo and then retrograding back into Cancer. So there's definitely some evaluation of our direction. So it's really important. I just want to point out that this kind of precludes this trining with the malefic Saturn before that retrograde.
And Mars is in Cancer, good point, until April 19th. That is 6 months. When he goes retrograde. It stays instead of 2 months. So we're really, as you point out, focused on the moon, which is always changing. So how we're working with our emotional basis is going to be really a fluid situation. But what's safe? What's secure? That's really what Cancer often wants. And what is intimate? What's the process? What, it's very strong dynamics there.
In family and motherhood.
Yes. Yeah. And I realized with a mystic, talking about point of thales, it actually makes 4 of them. Look at those diagonals, because you have what it takes. It has the opposition, and it has the sextile and the trine, and you can do it any which way. You can have it depending where you put it. You've got a couple of them, so that Saturn and Ceres and all of them can be a very constructive process. So I guess it's up to us whether we're going to stay attached to something too bitterly and release it with Mars in Cancer, or if we're going to realize to refocus and realize, is that really in my best interest? Is that story what I want? I added, and we have a few minutes because there were 2 other eclipses, solar eclipses at 10 degrees recently, relatively recently. October 3rd, they were both on October 3rd, 1986, which is quite a while back, and 2005. And I went through Wikipedia, and there's a whole ton of things. But most interestingly, I thought, well, there's the good and the bad in all of it, of course. But Europe had their what they call SEA, the Single European Act, which now is where Europe is one market. Of course, there's been Brexit and all that, but it's still amazing. And there were disasters. There was a Challenger, but we were going into space. That was one interesting thing. And then there was also the first child to a surrogate mother. There was, although there was Chernobyl with a nuclear plant, which is also a terrible disaster, there was Hands Across America, 5 million people, a human chain from New York to Long Beach. And then the first email service with software. And then if you go into sexuality, New Zealand reformed their homosexual act and decriminalized consensual sex from age 16 on. And then on the other flip side, we had 14 tons of toxic waste that rummaged around the world for 16 months and finally was dumped in Haiti, which I'm sure didn't help that poor country. And then if you go to 2005, Eris and Maki Maki were discovered. YouTube was launched and then actually uploaded their first. What else? Oh, there was the Mars, again, outer space reconnaissance orbiter. There were political reforms. There was where Chile said, hey, we're not having life senators anymore. There was Katrina. And also in Scotland, the first person was cured of HIV. So if you have any thoughts, we have a couple of minutes, but I don't know what you'd pick out of this. I didn't have time for charts, I'm sorry to say. But what stands out for thinking about Libra and this coming eclipse?
Well, they're powerful eclipses for the positive and, some negative things, but, it all balances out, so to speak.
Well, it does. And a lot about relationships, I guess. Relationships with groups, talking about that, like Europe trying to get together, countries saying, hey, it hasn't been right, the law, we're getting rid of Marcos, for instance. And then Chile saying, we're going to not have these senators for life anymore.
Well, there's also the whole aspect that Libra's an air sign, deals with communications and media. And so we see here, the thing with the first email service management software. And then, of course, we have the whole thing with YouTube. So there's an air communications aspect with Libra.
And we are in AI, and that definitely is so much of our what's going on now ahead of us. This is so true. These are some of the YouTubes. Well, thank you, Justin and Liz.
Thank you, Sue, and we'll be back next month.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, and as we're going through all these changes, we've had the equinox and the lunar eclipse and now the solar. It's really a matter of choosing our relationship with others so that we as a person can thrive, right? Survive and thrive.
Yeah.
Well, blessings to you both, and we'll see you again, like you say, Liz.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.